It's amazing what can change in just a mere 7 weeks. I'm John Renton with the Retro Review of World Wrestling All-Stars, the Eruption pay-per-view from April 13, 2002. The third pay-per-view put on by the World Wrestling All-Stars, and they're back in Melbourne, Australia. It seemed like Australia and the UK were where they drew their biggest crowds and got their biggest reactions, because the Revolution pay-per-view that took place not even 2 months prior to this event was the only US pay-per-view they had, and that fucking show was snake bit. But oh boy, a lot of changes happened, and I'll go through those when I talk about this card. And there were some good moments on this card, and also there were some moments where I'm like, wow, this match should have ended sooner than it did. This match really didn't get going, and this comedy was fucking bullshit. It's amazing considering NWA TNA would start just a little bit after this, and the WWA would still hold 2 more pay-per-views. They wouldn't hold another one until December of 2002, and then the final one would be May of 2003. Quite frankly, given the state of this company and given how the matches just seem to go absolutely buck fucking wild and get out of control and get to the point where the creative seem to be non-fucking existent, I'm amazed this company even lasted as long as it did. So anyway, they were at the Rod Laver Arena. I assume that's how it's pronounced. The capacity was listed as like 14,600, and I don't know what type of venue it was, but I can guarantee you there were maybe 7,000 people there. They had the house lights turned down to the point where it was so goddamn dark, you could barely tell if there was anybody there. It looked like a really, really weird venue, a very strange place to hold a pay-per-view. So there was a volcano on the stage and weird pyro and everything. It was like the volcano was out of like some, bad 70s, movie that had to, where people went to this native island. They had to deal with dinosaurs and everything, and the only thing they could afford was this goofy volcano that had this, 5th grade art project pyro stuff and everything. And it was really, really goddamn stupid. Jeremy Borash and Disco Inferno on commentary. The commentary was fucking ass. When Jeremy Borash is the best commentary you have, you are in trouble. Disco Inferno is abysmal. He's an abysmal wrestler, abysmal commentator, abysmal human being. So limo pulls up and Sid is here. He's the new commissioner. He has a cane because of the Sin leg break and the fact that even though Sid could walk, he needed the assistance of a cane because nobody was ever going to be the same after that. My God, that leg break's still fucking brutal. The reason he's the commissioner is Bret Hart was the commissioner at the Revolution pay-per-view, but in between that and the time this pay-per-view happened, he suffered that debilitating stroke. He was in a wheelchair. He had to, basically relearn how to walk and everything. He had to get back on his feet, literally. It was very, very difficult. It was that debilitating. He did make an appearance at another WWA event, I think in 2003, but he obviously couldn't be the commissioner there. So they called upon Sid. There was a guy named Mark Erickson doing the ring announcing, and this is how bad this guy was at his job. Borash and Disco Inferno are already out there. This guy proceeds to look at the entranceway like, hey, here are these guys coming. They were right there. They were literally even saying, we're right here. What the hell are you doing? He was not good. He was not good. It's like he had no idea who any of these people were. And it's like they got somebody last minute because maybe the other ring announcer pulled out. I don't goddamn know. He might have been a friend of Andrew McManus, who was the promoter of this whole thing and the funder of this. Can't imagine he made a whole lot of money on this thing, considering I think within about 2 years, I think somewhere around 2 years, the company just said, okay, that's it. Yep, we're pulling the funding and everything, whatever. NWA, TNA, and Ring of Honor had popped up in the States. Maybe they were going to have a problem getting talent. Also, oh yeah, WWA was kind of shit. So after the Revolution, while it had its issues like Randy Savage not being part of the pay-per-view because he's like, well, that doesn't work. I don't want to be there. They got Brian Christopher, who was also on this card. They got Brian Christopher to replace Randy Savage. Oh boy. So anyway, the first match was for the WWA International Cruiserweight Championship. It was actually a 4-man tournament because Eddie Guerrero was the champion, but he had signed with WWE and the title was vacated. It's Nova versus AJ Styles. It was quick. It was done in 4 minutes and it was finished off with a Styles clash. That's it. And then we cut to Scott Steiner and Madeja arriving. We get the Starettes, the Not Nitro girls, coming out to dance and everything in very little clothing. And they were dancing to Go Baby song. It's not like Go Ninja, Go Ninja. Listen to the song. You'll probably understand. I swear I know who the artist is, but I just can't recall right now. Jerry Lynn clips. he attacked Eddie Guerrero, and then, of course, Eddie, they might have done a couple house shows and everything. I mean, I don't really know. But Eddie, again, would sign with WWE, and Jerry Lynn took on a guy named Chucky Chaos. Now, that was for the WWA International Cruiserweight Championship. That was another semifinal match, and he beat the guy in about a minute, literally. But before that, Sid came out and thanked the fans and thanked Andrew McManus for bringing him down and him getting back in the ring. And even though he wasn't moving all that well, because, again, the freaking leg break, he got some very lame pyro, by the way. Very, very lame pyro. And he talks about Steiner, and he says they have history, but that he won't play by the rules. But he's going to be the enforcer. He's going to make sure that he plays by the rules tonight. So we get more midget stuff, because that's just what we need. After the Revolution match, that was absolutely goddamn bullshit. It was fucking terrible. Let's do another midget match. Tio and Puppet the Psycho Dwarf had a hardcore match, and who booked this? I don't know why. I don't know how. I'm not saying that there aren't great midget wrestlers, but this is bullshit. A lot of chairs, a lot of bullshit. There's one point where the finish had Tio pull a goddamn ladder. He does a splash onto the other guy that had a can on him and got the victory. That was it. That was literally the hardcore match. Sure, credit to these short guys for taking all these bumps. There were a lot of short jokes too, but anyway, so Queen Bee, who was apparently some penthouse cover girl or Playboy cover girl in Australia or whatever, is preparing for the evening gown match. And then a midget says to Medeja, "Hey, I'll see you after my match." I think they taped this before and just taped it out of sequence. So, State Shooting Stevie Ray is how the ring announcer said it, instead of straight shooting Stevie Ray. Easy for me to say, but I'm also not a ring announcer in front of a pay-per-view audience. Brian Christopher and Ernest Miller versus Buff Bagwell and Stevie Ray. What did I do to deserve this? Why did I endure this? Why did anybody watching this endure this? Nothing against Stevie Ray. Nothing against, Ernest Miller. Well, okay, when Stevie Ray's the best out of the four here, that's saying something. He was pretty much near the end of his full-time career. Brian Christopher was fine, tag teams, that's it. Ernest Miller could dance, and Buff Bagwell, he looked good, and that was about it. This is bad. This was just really, really bad. Disco Inferno's commentary was absolutely abysmal, by the way. And Buff even mistimed a sunset flip. Great job there, you fucking moron. And then we get a leg drop off the top where Brian Christopher nearly fell. Thank God he didn't. And got the victory. And then we got a dance-off. We got a dance, thing between Miller and Christopher. But first we had to get the Starettes and not Nitro Girls in here and a bunch of kids. Why? Because we needed to kill time on this pay-per-view. I'm glad the kids were there. Why was this? Why didn't you do this as a dark match or something and just have this? I don't fucking know. Disco got beat up by the kids, which is actually very fitting because the kids are better workers than Disco Inferno could ever hope to be. This took forever. By the way, Alan Funk is still the Funkster, impersonating Hulk Hogan from the AWA, and he beat Pierre Alouette, who would be the future PCO. Eye of the Tiger variation theme for Alan Funk the Funkster, and this match was not good. Pierre did some good big man stuff, and then he's funking up. And Uptown Funk You Up, Uptown Funk You Up. He hit the leg drop eventually. 1, 2, 3. I will say that he had, from a distance, he had the look of Hogan. I mean, he wasn't as big, but the guy did some pretty good impression of him. But this doesn't belong on pay-per-view. This is a bunch of comedy bullshit. Video package on Nathan Jones from the recent tour. Nathan Jones actually used to do top rope maneuvers. And then Scott Steiner comes down and talks about all the women he pleased in Australia, how he thinks the Aussie men are weak. He will beat up Aussie men, including Nathan Jones, and then some guy in the crowd. Just points at some random guy in the crowd. And I'm not going to tell Scott Steiner he can't do that because he's nuts. And then Nathan Jones shows up. And promos were never his thing. But he was fired up. And then, actually, this is where Sid said that he would be the special guest enforcer. Some of these talking segments blend together. That's exactly what fans paid to see, was talking segments. That's what the paying customer sitting at home paid to see. They paid $19.95 or whatever the price was. That's what Revolution was. So I'm assuming they held the same goddamn price. Who the hell knows? So yeah, then we get a Cruiserweight video package. just about various cruiserweights that have fought throughout the tour. We get Styles versus Jerry Lynn in what was probably the best match of the night, the WWA International Cruiserweight Championship Final. They always work well together. Jerry's a great heel here. The crowd did kind of shit on this at first, or at least some of the crowd did. They were even chanting boring. They eventually got the crowd into it with some good high spots. And Styles clashed for 2. It seemed like, oh no, Jerry Lynn might get the victory. Nope, spiral tap, the future spiral tap for 3. And AJ Styles is new champion. Let's move on to the steel cage match. The steel cage lowers, and then we get a video package on Sabu and Devon Storm. Because this feud will never end. Yes, it will go on and on, my friends. At least we didn't have Fonzie blowing the goddamn whistle here. They didn't bring him to Australia. So that instantly bumps this match up from the previous one. Devon Storm and Sabu in a steel cage match. The only way to win is by pinfall. You can even pin somebody outside the cage. Ignoring the point of a goddamn steel cage match. You're supposed to contain them in there. Okay, this did not need to go 17 minutes. It didn't even need to go 10. It should have been 8, and they should have cut down on the goddamn spots. Yes, they did some impressive stuff. Yes, they were both bleeding. And yes, there were some high-impact spots they took. At one point, Sabu just did a moonsault and just crashed to the goddamn ground. Did it off the top of the cage, by the way. We get holy shit chants. Devon climbs out of the cage, puts a guardrail piece on the steps, and by another piece of guardrail, and then Sabu gets slammed on that. We get more tables, a stack of tables. Devon climbs back in the cage, dives off onto Sabu, and this match kept going, by the way. Sabu eventually won after putting Devon Storm on another table in the cage, and then did a moonsault. Table didn't break. Sabu said, oh no, table, you're breaking. Did the Arabian leg drop, got the victory, 1, 2, 3. The match had good stuff to it. I'm not the biggest fan of hardcore matches, but it had some good stuff. My problem is it didn't need to go 17 minutes. That was ridiculous. Now, some of the matches were already kind of short anyway, so maybe they told these guys to stretch time to justify the pay-per-view, broadcast. But the video on YouTube that is available, if you search this, was only like 2 hours, 14 minutes. So, I mean, who knows? Imagine if they cut, 10 minutes off of this. Hell, they cut a couple minutes. They cut some of the comedy stuff backstage. This pay-per-view would have been under 2 hours. So anyway, Madejha took on Queen Bee in an evening gown match. They weren't wearing gowns. They were wearing skimpy dresses. And eventually the skimpy dress of Queen Bee got removed. And then 2 midgets attacked Madejha and removed her dress. This was something they thought was a good idea to put on pay-per-view. And then we get Sid coming down to the ring as the enforcer. It's Scott Steiner with Madejha versus Nathan Jones for the WWA Heavyweight Championship. And if you thought this match seemed like a good idea on paper, I would love what you're smoking, because this was ass. It wasn't the worst thing that I've goddamn seen involving Scott Steiner at this stage of his career, but Nathan Jones actually hit a pretty impressive over-the-rope flying clothesline, and there was a couple good big man spots, but then Nathan Jones slips off the ropes doing a top rope clothesline, almost freaking landing on his goddamn head. It really would have been bad. Actually, the way he was landing, he either would have landed on his head, or if he had come down on his leg wrong, Sid would have seen something similar to the leg break he suffered. We get the usual Scott Steiner, moves, set, and everything, because he couldn't barely move at this point. We get Sid coming into the ring, stop Madejha from interfering. Madejha attacks the ref when Nathan Jones almost has to win. And then we get more referees in. We get a belt shot, another belt shot. We get the Steiner recliner, but Nathan Jones, he can't rise up and he passes out. Even though the crowd's cheering, yeah, we could give Nathan Jones the victory. Nope, we have to give Scott Steiner the win. By the way, by the time the next pay-per-view happened, which was in December of 2002, Scott Steiner would be in the WWE and not wrestling, because he had the drop foot issue. Actually, he would wrestle on house shows, and apparently they were really bad, yet paled in comparison to the Royal Rumble 2003 match they would have, but it was what it was. Injuries happen. This whole goddamn pay-per-view, though, there were good things to it. You could see that they had some talent, but just this was the longest match on the show. This was 14 and a half minutes, and I understand they got to give the people what they want. Got to give the people what they want in the main event, but this had no business going 10 minutes. It should have been like 8, maybe. Just make it smash mouth and everything, do a couple interference things, and have Scott Steiner win, because he couldn't really do anything. Nathan Jones should have been working long matches. And then Scott Steiner got his hand raised. Sid said, well, I'll do this, but how about if I can ever get back in the ring, how about I face you? And Scott says, I'll break your leg again. Basically, that's about it. I don't think Sid wrestled on either of the two pay-per-views. I don't think he recovered till like sometime in early 2003. And maybe it wasn't even until, I think he was like pretty much out of wrestling, out of like taking any serious bumps for a couple of years. Actually, I think it was like 2004 that he came back. I'm trying to remember the timeline. But yeah, this pay-per-view, unfortunately, there were a few things that would end up being the high watermark of the WWA, because by the time they got to December 2002 pay-per-view, they had lost some talent. And then by 2003, their final pay-per-view, the things were coming apart at the seams, the wheels were falling off the goddamn wagon, whatever you want to say. They were basically toast. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.